Hello and welcome to the BCU Alumni podcast. I'm Bethan from BCU's alumni team, and in each episode we welcome a different member of our alumni community back onto campus, chat all about what they've been up to since they graduated from BCU. Today we're joined by Corey Brotherson. Corey graduated with a BA Hons in English Language and Literature back in 2000, and he's now an award-winning writer, editor and creative consultant. He's worked in the video games industry since 2001 as a journalist, critic and content producer for everyone from PlayStation to Yahoo. He's also the co-writer of the world's first Windrush video game. He guest teaches the students across the country, has worked on several comic books and is even the editor of children's book publisher Butterfly Books. Corey is even a BAFTA winner and also won the Game Dev Heroes 2024 Writing and Narrative Award. He's currently writing his debut novel as well. In this episode, we'll be discussing Corey's incredible career so far. Corey, welcome to the BCU Alumni podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for such a kind intro.
So really, there's not a lot you haven't done in the 25 years since you graduated, but let's go right back to the start then. So what made you want to study English at uni?
So when I was about 11 years old, I had this epiphany and I realised that I wanted to be either a writer, a games journalist or an artist. And because I read a lot of video game magazines at the time, I found out very quickly that a lot of video game journalists didn't have formal qualifications. So that was the kind of like path of least resistance, really, because ultimately I didn't know how to become a writer. This was before the days of the internet. So you had to try and figure out how that path would kind of like go. But a lot of writers wouldn't tell you how they became writers. They just kind of said, oh, I got a literary agent, I wrote my novel, and then I became a writer. And it's like, that's not very useful to an 11-year-old. So I thought if I became a journalist first, then that would make me easier to become a video game journalist, and then I can move on from there. So when I realized that not many video game journalists had formal qualifications, I thought if I get myself a degree as like in English or an associated degree, then hopefully that'll kind of give me an easier path into becoming a journalist, and then I'll be able to become a writer from that point onwards.
So what was it like to be a BC student back in the kind of late 90s then? Where were you based? Where did you live? And where did you like to spend your time?
Oh, it was the streets were paved with gold and it was sunshine every day. No, it was it was a very dark, gloomy time. No, it was actually a really good time for me. I lived at home with my parents because I was a local boy at the time, and it was cheaper just to stay at home, really. But it was a really kind of weird period of my life because it was trying to understand exactly still who I was and who I was going to be. And a lot of the time I was really trying to understand what it meant to be a kind of young adult, and also what it meant to be a person growing into this strange, changing world. One of my best friends went to university with me, so me and him hung out a lot, but we kind of, made a few new friends while we were here. And a lot of the time we hung out around a place called Circo, which was a bar on Smallbrook Greensway.
Okay.
So where the Radisson Blu Hotel is now.
Okay.
This is a very, very long time ago. So it was called the Vodka Bar because they had like different flavor vodkas there, and we used to go there like literally every day for a long period of time, just kind of like reveling in this newfound adulthood. But yeah, it was a very bizarre time. One Stop was relatively new as well, so we used to just kind of hang around there as well. And we weren't even hanging around in the common rooms around the campus at Perry Bar. So yeah, it was a good period.
Of course, you used to do Perry Bar then, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, the Perry Bar campus. Many, many stories.
So talk me through your kind of initial steps after graduation then. What did you get started with?
So when I finished my BA, I actually made the realization that I probably should make myself a bit more bulletproof. And I went and did a master's in journalism. So I moved away for a year, and then during that time when I moved away, I discovered a video game magazine called Games Domain, which was a total random incident there, because the reason why I moved away was because I thought I'd have to either move away to Bath, Bournemouth or London if I wanted to become a video game journalist.
Okay.
As it turned out, the Games Domain magazine that I found in Bournemouth was a video game website based in Aston.
Oh, wow.
So I had to move all the way to Bournemouth to realise that actually there was a video game publication on my doorstep, literally around the corner from Star City.
No way.
So I had a placement there. They really liked my work. And then when I finished doing my dissertation, they said, like, if we've got a space for you, then we'd love to have you on board. And just so as fate, luck, fortune, whatever you want to call it, happened, someone left at that particular moment in time. So I got an instant place as a video game journalist, working around the corner from where I used to grow up, which was just wild in itself. So, and that kind of started me in the games industry from that point onwards.
So you've worked for the likes of King and PlayStation. So what has it been like working in the video games industry for over 20 years now? And what has been the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry in that time?
It's the video games industry has been very variable over those 20 years or so. And I think the largest things are, and this is kind of being very reductive, but the largest things are money and size. And kind of what I mean by that is that effectively games these days are substantially bigger than what they used to be. And they come out all the time. Before, back then, you would like maybe get 6 or 7 games launched a week, if that. And these days, like games are launching by the dozens, if not by the like close to the hundreds every month. And so the market is very, very saturated. And that's partly because we've got the internet now and there's a lot more developers out there in the world. Yeah. Games like Grand Theft Auto 3, for example, really changed everything because that changed the scope of what games could be and changed the perception of people's kind of ideas of what games could be as well. But as a result, like now the video games industry is a multi-billion pound industry. It's more lucrative than TV, films or music. You would think that would be a kind of a golden era, but unfortunately we've had like literally thousands of redundancies in the last couple of years through various reasons, the pandemic being one of them. It's kind of really affected the industry. But because it is so lucrative, it's attracted a lot of people that don't necessarily have the industry to the best of heart, and so they've kind of taken what they want and then they leave, and then that's caused issues in that respect. So it's a good time, but it's also a bad time in the games industry, but that's unfortunately just the nature of the industry itself at this moment.
So you're the co-writer of the world's first Windrush video game, Windrush Tales. So can you tell me about how that opportunity came about?
So I met a lady called Shella Ramanan, who was a writer in the games industry herself. She is, like myself, a Windrush descendant. And basically, we got talking. I was invited onto a podcast and we were kind of just talking about just general things and video games and industry stuff. And she said one day, would I be interested in joining her in putting together a Windrush game? Because she wanted to do something to celebrate Windrush and she didn't know what she wanted to do.
Okay. She
wasn't sure it was going to be like a novel or a short story or a poem or something, but she loved video games. She was in the industry, so she thought, why not make a game? And so she invited me along and then kind of said, like, would you want to kind of write a Windrush video game with me? And I said, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Not realizing that was actually going to be the world's first video game about Windrush. Yeah. My parents and my grandparents are from that generation, so it's something that's obviously very close to me. As life would kind of make out, really, we ended up kind of going in 2 separate directions. Shella ended up moving from the UK to Sweden to work for Ubisoft, this really big video game developer. And I ended up moving from London back to Birmingham because I went from PlayStation to becoming a freelance writer. And that kind of changed the space of time that we had to put this game together as we were building a team, and we kind of had to resettle our lives first before we could pick the game back up again. So it's still in development and we're still putting stuff there, but it's something that is incredibly important to us and we want to keep it moving where we can.
So what are your, I guess, like video game highlights then? And also, do you still find the time to play and actually get inspiration from other games?
It's I think it's one of those great ironies. Like whenever you join an industry, your consumption of the media from that industry lessens somehow, which is crazy. So I don't get much spare time to play video games these days, which sounds kind of weird considering that my job is around the industry, but like, because I still write for PlayStation, they give me games and I get to play them and I get to use them as part of the features that I write for PlayStation blog. And because I'm a member of BAFTA as well, it's like when we get round to voting season, which is actually right now, we get like literally hundreds of games just sent to us and we have to sit down and play as many as we can. So which is overwhelming at times. But when I get a chance to play them, which is great, it's always nice to actually kind of get to enjoy them. But I always end up falling back on like some old comfort games like Spelunky and Don't Starve. And,
I was going to ask, what are your like favourite games to actually play when you do have time? And are they ones that you like play when you were growing up?
Yeah, a lot of them are kind of like games from the last 10 years or so, I'll probably say. The games that I played growing up are so old that they're not very enjoyable anymore. Because my first console was like the Atari 2600 and I was about 5 years old, and we're talking like the 1980s. So it's, you know, these are awful games these days. But the games I was like playing during the 1990s when I was a teenager were games that I can still play these days to a certain degree. But yeah, there's like a modern game like Balatro, which is a card game. I really enjoy that game. That's something that's one of the more recent titles that I keep coming back to, but it is very much down to time, because if I can play a game and get enough out of it within the space of about 20 minutes to half hour, then that's usually a game for me to kind of dip in and dip back out again and not have to worry about the other commitments of my life infringing on it.
So you've also scribed over a dozen comic book stories, including the women-focused sci-fi anthology Deadlier Than and the ongoing graphic novel series Magic of Myths. So were you always a comic book fan then, and what's it like to work on them?
Yes, very much a comic book fan since I was about 4 or 5 years old as well.
Yeah.
So a similar time to when I started playing video games. Again, showing my age. So I've got a very fond memory, and I'm not even sure if this is an accurate memory anymore, of when my mum and dad used to take me around to Asda, which was around the corner from Villa Park, funnily enough, before they moved it to One Stop. And I remember picking up a Transformers comic, and I think that was the first comic book that I owned specifically that I wanted, that I hadn't been kind of handed down.
Yeah.
And that really changed everything for me, because I became a big Transformers fan after that point and a big comic book fan after that point. And so I always wanted to be in the comic book industry when I realized that it was actually a viable job to kind of go into. Getting to kind of write all that sort of stuff is just like, it's really just an experience which I actually hoped it would be, which is to say it's wonderful. It doesn't pay very much, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But getting to see like my books on shop shelves and going to what was once called Nostalgia and Comics is now called Worlds Apart on Smallbrook Queensway, which is one of the oldest comic book shops in the country. And going there and kind of seeing my books on the shelves is like, it's like the 5-year-old in me is just kind of going, what? How has this even happened? Is this like a bizarre, really wiped out dream? It's just strange. But yeah, it's been a massive passion for me for a very long period of time. So I'm glad I'm able to fulfill that.
So you're also the editor and social media manager of the children's book publisher Butterfly Books, and you also guest teach in primary and secondary schools as well. So what inspired you to become involved with children's literature, and do you find it rewarding?
It's incredibly rewarding. You know, being able to help kids understand about the world kind of outside of the window is huge. It really is huge. I mean, I got involved with Butterfly Books because the co-owner, Kareem Bryan, she's my godfather's niece.
Okay.
And she's an engineer. And she realized that her daughter, her first daughter, was growing up knowing that her mother was an engineer, but not necessarily other little girls would understand that engineers could be women.
Mm.
And so she wanted to kind of create a line of books where roles which are typically gendered were kind of like examined and kind of said, well, actually, no, like if you're a young boy, you can become a nurse. Mm-hmm. If you're a woman, you can become a footballer, or you can become an engineer, or you can become a scientist or a farmer or a plumber. So she devised a series of books with her brother to examine all these gendered roles and create books which kind of like basically exploded that and kind of just really opened hope to open kids' minds and kind of like explore what it could be for their potential when going into careers. So I was really honored that they asked me to be an editor, because at that point I'd been in the industry for a fair few years, and I'd edited books before. I'd edited a graphic novel series called Clockwork Watch. And so being asked to do that was just like, okay, yeah, that sounds amazing. I really love the sound of these books. So why not? And I've just managed to get through, I think, 8 books now in total. So it's been an ongoing thing since then.
So in 2020, you were selected for the London Games Festival Ensemble exhibition in recognition for your work in the video games industry. The same year, you became the lead narrative designer for the African mythology action adventure Tales of Kinzura, which went on to win the Games Beyond Entertainment BAFTA award this year in 2025. So what's it like to be awarded something as prestigious as a BAFTA? And what were your highlights of working on the game as well?
It's crazy. It was really genuinely crazy. That was the one year I didn't actually vote in the awards as well. I mean, you're not allowed to vote if you're associated with the games that have been nominated, just to be clear. So, otherwise it'd be a bit shady. But I wasn't actually voting in that awards anyway, because I was moving house and I just had too much on. And I was actually at the awards, the ceremony, and I'd left the company years before. I left the company about a year and a half before the game was launched.
Okay.
And I was one of the few people, in fact, I was one of two people at the Game Awards that was associated with the company. The other person being the CEO, owner of the company, Abubakar Salim, who is a British Hollywood actor. I think he's in, most recently was House of the Dragon Season 2.
Okay.
So he was very much the creative director of the game. And I know he was there. And he was sitting at practically at the front because he was, a nominee essentially. Yeah. And I was sitting pretty much at the back of the auditorium, the cheap seats essentially. And when they announced that the game had won the award, I literally, no word of lie, I literally sank in my seat and was like, no, how? No. And the people around me sitting was going like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? So I think it took a while for I realized actually what happened. And after that point, I was sitting on the table with other people that were sitting nearby me in the dinner reception. And I was still trying to process it all a little bit, especially because I hadn't been on the game for a while. And at the end of the night, Abu actually came up and found me, and he went down on one knee and hoisted the BAFTA award to me and said, like, this is as much yours as it is mine. Wow. Which I really appreciated. Like I said, I'd not been on the team for a year and a half. I was on the team for nearly 3 years of development. So it was still very much a fever dream, I think, up to that point. And being able to hold it was huge. So I was very appreciative and grateful for that. But it was a great experience to work on that game anyway. Yeah. The narrative team, which consisted of me leading the narrative team of two other people, Sun M and Dominic Hodge. And Dominic was the one that was left on the narrative team after both Sun and I had left. And being able to work with them and the rest of the team was just a wonderful experience in itself. I really learned a lot from that, and it was a massive learning experience as well, because it's the first time I've been in a role that senior.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to see the game come together was just fantastic, and I'm glad it was rewarded by an actual award. So you're writing your debut novel at the moment. So can you tell me anything about it at the moment? So I've not gone on public record as to the name of it and what it's about as of yet. I've spoken to many people off the record about it, which I probably shouldn't be doing. But I can probably hint around it. So it is an adaptation of one of my short stories that I've done over the years. I know that doesn't probably narrow it down too much, but
I was going to say you've done a lot.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be deliberately vague. And let's see, it's fantasy genre, but not necessarily kind of like archaic fantasy. And on top of that, it really kind of delves into a lot of topics which I tend to write a lot about. Yeah. So it looks about identity, and identity from a personal perspective, but also bizarrely topically, kind of like a national perspective as well. Yeah. Who says why and how we cannot be British, essentially, from a fictional point of view. It looks at classism. It looks at sexism and the nature of how sexism is in government institutions as well. These are all stuff which is kind of like I try to write about when I feel like there's a sense of injustice or something which has really, really angered me or irritated me. And this is something that is very, very specific to this novel in that respect. Again, I know I'm being really vague, so apologies. But yeah, these are very much the topics and the themes that I'm kind of exploring in the novel. I've written about half of it so far. Okay. And my literary agent is currently looking at that half and then seeing how she feels about it before we do anything else. But hopefully I'll be able to announce it relatively soon and be able to say more about it. So you've done so much in the 25 years since you graduated then, but how have you found the time to do it all? And what advice would you give to those who want to follow in your footsteps? Finding time. I have to force time to kind of to be used when I'm doing stuff, generally speaking, especially now as a freelancer. I have to be very, very careful with my time because I have bills, I have mortgage, I have a lot of commitments that need to be all fulfilled. So it's really just trying to just be as judicial as possible when it comes to taking on certain tasks and try and maximizing that as much as possible. What I would say to people that want to do what I want to do, it is something which is very much tapped into your personal commitments. And what I'm kind of mean by that is that when you write, you always feel like a piece of you is being exposed to people, whether it's 5 people, whether it's the world. And what that comes with is a certain amount of criticism and feedback, especially these days. I was lucky that the internet was still very young when I started writing, so the feedback wasn't quite as voracious as it would be right now. But it's understanding that everyone will have opinion on everything that you do. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is express yourself in a medium and different mediums as best as way possible. And it's not a personal thing that people are feeding back on you. Once you've created something and finished it, that now technically belongs to the world, and everyone will have their opinions on what that is. But as long as you're feeling true to yourself and as long as you're kind of pushing that out there, it'll still be yours at the end of the day. It'll still be yours in your own heart. Taking advantage of many opportunities and networking as much as possible is really important because everybody writes these days and everyone can publish their stuff. So meeting people, going out to events, socializing, which is really hard for a kind of socially anxious person like me. But you have to do it. Ultimately, it's the only way you're going to kind of move forward and meet the right people that can open those gates really to allow you to go in. You can have all the talent in the world, but unless you're knocking on the right doors and having those doors open for you, it means very, very little. So, continue working on your craft. Definitely kind of keep pushing on regardless of the feedback that you're getting. Take on board the constructive criticism, but keep on networking as well. Keep on moving forward because no one's gonna do it for you. Unfortunately, you just gotta have to keep on writing, keep on working, and eventually those doors will open.
So this is something we love to do in every episode, which is a Birmingham quick fire round. So the first question is first spot on the BCU campus, but obviously you stood at Perry Bar. So what was your favourite spot at Perry Bar?
We had a common room, funnily enough, that we always used to go by. And it was just like a regular room that we always used to just hang around by all the time. The Perry Bar campus had paternosters as well, which were dangerous.
So did you ever used to go actually up and down on them?
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting, especially obviously from an alumni perspective. That is one of the key things that people remember about Perry Bar. They always refer to the lifts.
Yes.
And I can never get my head around how they actually worked and also how they were even legal in the first place.
They shouldn't be legal because one time I didn't know how they worked myself and I was daydreaming or something, and one time one of them went down. And I realized I'd missed my stop. And in a moment of blind panic, was not thinking at all, I jumped up and tried to pull myself up through the gap. And it was just like, no, this isn't going to happen. And I immediately let go. And at that point, the panic even swelled up even more because it's like, 1, I nearly lost my arms. And 2, I was like, I don't know where these are going. And then eventually it just kind of stopped, went down underneath and then came back up again. And that was it. That was my experience on the paternosters. But it was just like, oh my God, this is insane. What am I doing?
Because there's all these tales of people who what happens when you get to the top or what I'm what actually then happened to the people in the lift.
Stuck forever in time. That's what I thought was going to happen to me. I thought I was going to find a skeleton and I'll be there at the bottom of this paternoster. Ridiculous.
Would you rather go to Snobs or Pop World?
So Pop World didn't exist when I was growing up, and Snobs was actually around the corner from where my mom used to work at Lloyd's Bank, which was at the top of Brunel Street next to Swallow Street, so not too far away, opposite Town Hall. So
Snobs, like the original Snobs.
The original Snobs. And when I was a kid, I had no idea what this place was. It was just a place. I'd go and pick up my mom from work, and it was just like, what's this place called Snobs? So I didn't actually go to Snobs until I was in my early 20s.
Right.
And it was still in the original place at the time. But I went there maybe 2 or 3 times. My friend called Biggles, who nicknamed him Biggles, used to go there every week. We used to take the mickey out of him for doing so, but it was just like, okay, Snobs is Snobs.
Yeah.
And when Pop World emerged, which I think it was before, it was like a place called Reflex or something like that.
Yeah.
it was just like, oh, okay. But by then, I think I was in my mid to late 20s or something. And that's just like, my days of clubbing are long gone. And I'm an old man now. So I've never been popular, so it's got to be snobs.
Blues or Villa?
Villa boy. Born and bred. I grew up in Great Bar. 15 minutes away from Villa Park. So yeah, my dad's a Villa fan. My grandfather's a Villa fan. Yeah, it's Villa all day, every day.
Okay, Broad Street or Digbeth?
When I was younger, it would have been Broad Street, because that was the hub of everything. Everyone went to Broad Street when you were going clubbing or bars. These days it would be Digbeth. And Digbeth has grown a lot and changed a lot over the years. So, it's become a real hotbed of just kind of great social activity. So now again, old man. So Digbeth it is.
What is your favourite Brummie landmark?
It's probably not a landmark as such, but I really like the canal in Brindley Place.
Yeah.
Very peaceful, kind of very gentle. And Brindley Place is a really lovely place to kind of go. I used to work there when I was when they moved the Lloyd's Bank to Brindley Place. My mum was still working there. I used to work there during the summer during my student years, and so I used to just hang out there a lot. So yeah, really fond memories of there.
And what is your best Brummie word?
Gambol.
Oh, I love Gambol.
So yeah, it's just, I think when I was younger and I heard my friends talk about Gambol, it's just like, what the heck's Gambol?
Yeah.
But then it was just like, oh, okay, it's a forward roll, okay. So yeah, everyone was just talking Gambol. Boston's always like the one that I think a lot of people tend to go for as well. But Gambol is one that takes me back to my childhood. So that's the one.
And final question then, if you could go back to your very first day here at BCU, what is one piece of advice you would now give yourself?
Be more open to the opportunities and the lifestyle that BCU offered. I'm a very shy person, not as shy as I used to be, but I still suffer from that social anxiety. I still suffer with my own mental health as well. And when I was a 18-year-old, that was a big struggle. And if I hadn't had my friend with me going to university, I probably would have struggled to make friends for the first year or so. I tried to be a friendly person, but that shyness is really overpowering at times. So I definitely tell myself and tell anybody who's in a similar boat to really allow themselves to be open to being kind of like to other people around you, to all the facilities and the opportunities that the university offers, because not only is there a lot more these days compared to when I was there, but this is all stuff that is really, really helpful to you kind of like growing as a person and actually enjoying the university life.
Yeah. Corey, thank you so much for coming on to the BCU Alumni podcast today. It's been so inspiring and really powerful as well to learn more about your journey so far, and we can't wait to see you again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you for listening. You can check out more episodes of the BCU Alumni podcast on our YouTube channel now. Thank you, and we'll see you again very soon.